So on these notes, we've done all of these. I just compiled the app. A lot of people did it as well. If you didn't, we'll have lab time soon. Well, let's change our focus a little bit here to this App Store stuff. So go ahead and go to any web browser, and we will go to the website developer.apple.com. developer.apple.com. So, if we had compiled our app and set it all up for the Apple App Store, this would be the portal where I would log in and then upload my Apple compiled app and publish it here and then get it to people's devices. Well, I'm showing you here a commonality of app stores. Developer.apple.com, the Android App Store, developer.google.com, I guess technically developers, plural, developers.google.com. So there is here the Google portal. If you don't know by now, Google owns Android. So here I would create an account, I would set it up, I would sign in, set it up, create the store listing, etc., etc. Now, both of these app stores have their pros and cons. One of the biggest ones is that they are not free. Both of these you need to pay to become a developer to be able to publish your apps. At the Google, I think it's around like $25 or $28 or $30, something like that. We can look up the pricing. But let's round it up to $30. No, one-time fee. On Google, you pay a one-time fee, you create an account, and then you publish your apps. Then they could be sold for 99 cents and up, or given away for free. Even if you're going to give your apps away for free, you still have to create and pay for the developer account here. If we're doing on Apple, it's similar. You need to create the account, you need to pay for it, and you need to publish your apps, which then could be free or paid for. Now, for Apple, I haven't done it very recently, but we can look it up. I believe it's still the price of $99 per year to be able to publish apps to the Apple App Store. So you have the one-time fee over here on Google, and you have the yearly fee. You have the yearly fee on the Apple App Store. So those are the two possible big ecosystems. Question? Yes. For both of them, however, you could make then as many apps as you want. You'll create your developer account, and then you'll upload as many, publish as many as you want. Well, everything that we've done in this class so far has been free. And it will continue to be so because there's a third app store, developer.amazon.com. This is the one where we're going to create the account for free and be able to publish our Android App Store for free, our Android app for free. And here's where we can publish apps that are free or paid. So here's where we can give away the apps out of altruism or get rich 99 cents at a time. So developer.amazon.com is where my lecture will focus on. Whatever we do here, there will be a version of it if you decide to go to the Google App Store or the Apple App Store. Now, of course, all of these have their support documentation on exactly how they work. And of course, you can go search for it on a search engine on how to do it all and find YouTube videos and everything. But I'm going to focus on the Amazon App Store. And nowadays, the Amazon is not just books and CDs and streaming. Now it's Alexa and this Amazon Web Storage and the App Store and Amazon Dash and all of that. So the one we care about is Amazon App Store. Develop Android apps and games for Amazon Fire, Fire tablet, and mobile platforms. Now the great thing about Android is that it's open source. And everyone can kind of make their own tweak of it. But the bad thing about Android is that it's open source and everyone can make their own tweak of it. So Amazon took the core Android software, and then they made their own spin on it for their own tablets, their Amazon tablets. What's the big famous Amazon tablet? Kindle. Exactly. So their Kindle tablet has their own slightly different version of Android. And so Kindles have their own ecosystem, their own app store. But Amazon also is any Android apps or Android device. So in this case, my Asus tablet could also access the Amazon App Store and get apps. My regular phone, my Motorola phone, can access the Amazon App Store and get apps. Now, the default is the official Google one, and if I have a Kindle, the official one is the Amazon one, but I'm able to still get the Amazon App Store on my Android device and install apps. So we're going to focus on creating an App Store account and listing and the process of it here, which will be a variation of what you would do over here, but here I'm not going to ask you to pay for this, because we can't get very far without paying for it. We're going to get pretty far here for free. So the first step over here, on this I think I will write it in a separate notepad file. I haven't written notes like that in a while. And I'll mention all of this here. Well, that's something that I'm going to mention, because you have to decide, do you want to use an existing Amazon account or create a new account just for you being a developer. So we have Apple developer, we have developer.google.com, we have developer.amazon.com. So here we have very famous, could be profitable, not free, or we'll just say $90 per year. Over here, developer, famous. This is also very famous, but I just mean in terms of people that are in the Apple ecosystem are like really in it, and like I get everything out of the Apple App Store. I get everything. There's nowhere else that I get it. If you use Google devices, maybe you're a little bit more techy and might sideload apps or get the raw file from a repository and install it, sideloading it, and all this advanced stuff. We're going to say also default on Android. To be honest, less profitable, because the culture of Android and open source is a lot more about like you don't have a free version, or why don't I just get someone else's version that is free and you're asking me to pay 99 whole cents for it, and things like that. So people on the iPhone ecosystem have been much more conditioned of, yeah, 99 cents per song, $9.99 per album, yeah, 99 cents app, give me this, give me that, 99 cents. In that ecosystem, it's kind of grown up a little bit more over the last decade that, yeah, things cost money, a few 99 cents at a time. People that are over on Android are a little bit more like, you know, information should be free, and so should the apps, and gimme, and such. So that's not completely bad, of course. I believe in that too, to a degree. But you're going to see that as an app developer, that maybe the version that you're selling at the App Store sells a little bit more than the version on the Google Store, because, well, you've got your own inventory tracking system for 99 cents. Let me see who else is doing it for free. Okay, I want the free one. So just be aware of that. This is $30 one time. Yeah, it'll still redirect you, but that's true, yes. So developer Amazon over here, and this is default on Kindles, but compatible with any Android, and also free to set up. And that's why we're going to do it in this class. All three app stores, however, take a commission for selling your apps. Usually 30% of the value of your app. So if your app is $1, If you're selling apps for $1, what you actually get out of it is the 70 cents out of it. So all of the app stores, including Amazon, does that. They take some amount out of the value of your app because it costs money to run these servers 24 hours a day and accessible in 200 countries in the world. So you're going to get around 70, 75, 80, whatever the current values are. They take some amount. Even out of free apps. So they're going to take 30% out of your free app. That's a joke because, it's zero. You're going to take nothing out of it because you're selling it for zero.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So if I'm on my phone right now and I go to the Google Play Store, and this app is only available on the Amazon Play Store, I cannot see it?
Exactly. If I go to the Google App Store, but my app is on the Amazon App Store, I won't see it.
So the only way I can see developers.google.com is if they pay that $30.
Yes. If I pay the $30 to create an account, yes, and then publish my app to Google, then it'll appear on the Google Play Store, even if it's an app that is free, and especially apps that are not free. But what people can do, and people do all the time, I can go to the Google Play Store and download the Amazon App Store. Then I have the Amazon App Store on my Motorola, and then I can download all the apps that are there on the Amazon App Store. It is a little extra step because by default, go to Google Play and get it. It's one more step of get the Amazon App Store, and then I have access to all the Amazon apps.
And just one more question.
Yes.
If you have an app, and it is quote-unquote free, are you able to host it on a website that instantly downloads it to somebody's phone type thing?
There is also that way. These routes right here are through the established channels of the app stores, which means it's a lot easier. There's a whole infrastructure. There is a whole way for you to do it where you put your app on your own website, totally for free, and go download it. The issue with that, especially with Android, well, all the apps, all the devices, you have to kind of turn on the feature, let me install apps not from the official app stores. And if you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. You turn that on, you download the APK, you install it. You've got it totally out of their ecosystem. For the average person, they're not going to know to go to their settings and turn whatever off. And even if you have a step-by-step guide, the phones will still tell you, are you sure you want to do this? You're about to expose yourself to apps that you don't know about. Are you sure? Well, us that we know what we're doing. But if your relatives are not tech savvy and you're telling them, yeah, you can get my app for free. Go to my website, turn off your developer account, do this and that. It'll warn you 3 times, but just click OK, and then click yes, and then you'll have my app. That's why we get into these app stores, because they have the ecosystem that is much more user-friendly. But Samsung has their own app store, exactly. So some of these big companies are doing their own app store, and they have you go through their ecosystem. Or self-host, but lots of hassle. Short answer. Long answer is what I said plus more, but you could have your own app on your own website and walk people through step by step and with a video or just text or whatever and explain, here's how you get my app for free. Okay, so, I was going to make one more note. We'll use Amazon App Store in this class. You decide if you want to use an existing Amazon account or create a new one to focus on app development. So I already have my email that I use to buy my stuff at Amazon, the book or the streaming movie or whatever. But I personally also have VictorAppsGmail.com, for example. I have a separate email that I have for the portal to log into developer.amazon.com.
Is there some con about using your like normal email and contact information that's maybe you're using not to do it?
Some of this information will be public because Amazon and all of these app stores want to show that there are legitimate businesses behind these app stores. But that doesn't mean I can't go and create a free throwaway email address at Yahoo to set this up. I could. But it should be, in theory, set up with legitimate credentials so that you do customer service, you get contacted by your customers, maybe for refunds or for praise or whatever. So these should be filled out legitimately. I'm just saying, I wouldn't recommend. How many of you have ever had an Amazon.com account to buy stuff? Raise your hand. Like everyone for 20 years, right? But for this class, I wouldn't use the email address you've used before for your Amazon purchases. I would use a different email address to keep it separate. To get emails as a developer, to get updates and so forth. So there's a sign-in button, which I will then create a developer account for this class.
As far as for today, I can use my own one just to go through it, and then because I'll need to get an email address.
Sure. Yeah. You can go through it and then never release your app or whatever. But yeah, it'll ask you for some things. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to create. A lot of this will be pretty straightforward, but I'll note some things as we get there. Again, I can make this up if I want, and the only issue is it will ask you to confirm your email address. That's not a real email. It's going to send it to nowhere, so I'll be stuck somewhere. So if you don't have a different email address to use for the moment, you can use an existing one, but as I said, I would recommend a different account.
So should we follow you right now?
Yes, if you're going to do the assessment, you will need to be able to do this part. Password, re-enter password, and then create. Okay, so in my case, I'm getting a one-time password sent to my email. The different semesters that I do this, sometimes it asks for this, sometimes it doesn't. I see that sometimes when several people are creating this type of account at the same time, it might say, why are 20 people doing the same thing in the same room? Seems suspicious. So in my case, I got the pop-up that says, go check your email to continue. Did anyone else also get this verify email like me? Maybe, maybe not. So I'm going to need to go to my email to confirm that. So they're trying to yeah, that always happens where it's when you need to do it out of your usual routine. There it is. When you need to do it out of your usual routine, you suddenly forget. You can use aliases to...
It's your email plus. Right here. So it's your email plus whatever. So let's say your email plus whatever. Yeah.
Does it automatically know that?
Yeah.
So you can just, anytime on the fly, when somebody asks for you, you can give them your email anywhere you want. You have to go set it up with Google first.
I think.
It's good to know.
All right, so depending what people have here, they can just proceed with an account or use an existing account or create one. This is where we kind of differ a little bit because people might have different things. So this is, again, something a little bit more to do in the lab time in just a moment. But in any event, you have to create an account. And I think mine's going to look different than yours because I ran out of email addresses to use for this. So I'm using one that already exists. But if your screen looks very different than mine, let me know just for me to see what it looks like. But ultimately, when you create the account, it shows, well, I'm logged in. I'm logged in with this account, and I should have a new link, Developer Console. When I wasn't logged in, it didn't have that. It said sign in. After I've signed in, now I have Developer Console. So I'm going to have my Developer Console where I have dashboard, apps, if I want to work with Alexa, if I want to set up a system. You know, Google has this, Facebook has this, where I can log in through my Google account to log into your app. Amazon has something like that too. So I have this feature that I can set up for my app. But from the Developer Console here, I can go to Apps and Services, My Apps, and I've got a bunch of items over here. I can set it up to have me test my app before it goes live to the world for them to find issues with it. I can set it up for ads, to have ads in my app to make money that way, and maybe my app is for free, but there's ads, and if people click the ads, I can make money off of that. This is not a game, so the game circle really won't apply, but they have their whole ecosystem of making money off of your apps, which are specifically games. Amazon has its own API access, so I can access some of the resources that Amazon gives, like maybe in this comic book app, I wanted to search, do they sell it on Amazon? So Amazon will give you documentation about how do you write code to access our database of products so that when someone searches in your app, they get results on Amazon and they click Buy Now out of your app and other things. So under apps, because I've already used this account, mine I think is going to look different than yours in terms of when I go to my apps. I already have an app here that I was setting up before for another semester. And maybe on yours it's slightly different, but I would have the button to add new app. So I've done all of this work in Visual Studio to make an app. I've done the part of the first half of this lecture where I made the certificate, I made the release version, that APK file, which I will then ultimately upload here to Amazon or Google. These are the two app stores that focus on Android. I would have to do the slightly different process to create the Apple version of the app. Then I would upload it here. But for here on Amazon, okay, I can go to add a new app. I'm doing a new app for Android. And what we will see here is some items to submit here. Some are required, some are not. And some of these have a little pop-up that might tell you a little bit more info. So what's the app title? For the purposes of this class, I would use the, like I was asking for earlier, of your last name to differentiate it from other people's apps. This SKU, a unique to your app string that you define yourself. So if, this is optional, if you have multiple apps that you're publishing, you want to keep track of which is which. So you could put your, the same sort of thing where I had biz.smith.cbdb, you could call it also just cbdb1, some sort of unique identifier that this is this app. It's optional. It's more important when you have multiple apps that you're publishing and to keep track of them. They will still be differentiated by the app title, but if you're, this is more for advanced people, if they've got a lot of different apps or versions of the app, maybe the free version and the paid version. So I won't fill anything in, but it tells you here this is to keep track of them for yourself, for your own tracking purpose. App category is required. If I look on the app categories here, I've got a whole bunch of them. If I look down here, apps about photos, about news, reference, utilities, weather. My app, the app that we're building, which one do you think it might fit in?
Books and comics.
Yeah, that's easy. The first one, books and comics, is an app about books and comics. In my case, when I set up my account, again, I kind of skipped it because I already had the account, so I couldn't fully show you. But when you were making your account, it was probably asking you for your name and your phone number and stuff, and you could skip some stuff. So eventually on mine, my default customer support info cannot be shown because it wasn't provided when I registered the account. You will be required at the very least here to have an email address for people to contact me with complaints or hopefully praise for my app. So that is required, and I think just for the purposes of the class, it can be something like this. I don't think they fully check it, but it should be a legitimate email address. Customer support phone and website, well, those are listed here as optional. If I do have my own website, I could put my website address there. So I filled in the required ones and I'll click Save.
So can you come back later and edit that?
All of this will be editable still, yes. Okay, so then we have some items listed at the top here. The current version of the app, the listing is incomplete. I have a little panel where I can test my app before it goes live to the world, in-app purchases and other services, and then app progress 1 of 6. I have these 6 tabs, and when we get to the assessment, I'm going to look to see that all of these are checked green. Some of them are very straightforward, and some of them I'll explain a little bit. This general info, there's not much to do here, but if I wanted to, whoops, actually this is not comic books and apps, it's reference. In any of these screens, I have at the bottom an edit. So if you needed to change those, you could. And the other info here is just a unique identifier about this particular app. That if you need your app to do advanced stuff, here's the app ID and so forth, according to Amazon. So this check mark 1 of 6 is finished, easy. Let's jump to the 6th one, APK files. This one's pretty straightforward. Do you want it to apply Amazon DRM? That is like more encryption so that it's like this is the official version of the app. It's what's another definition for DRM? It like locks it into the device. This is by default, no, it doesn't add the extra encryption. When we already did the release version here, it already encrypted the stuff. So when when we have our login system and all of that, that's already the files of our app are already encrypted via Visual Studio. So this is extra. If you want it, default is no, that's fine. Here's an important one, APK file. So drop your APK here or click to find it. So from my flash drive, that android-release.apk file that I renamed into my name, drop it into there. If you don't have it at the moment, that's okay. You're going to need to be able to do this by the assessment, which you'll still have some lab time and days to practice this. But in this screen, I drop the app. It says, okay, it sees that this is my APK file. This is version code 1. That's what it found inside of my config file. Version code 1. Version code 1. It's supported on all of these devices. Great. Do I have these other... What's the language that my app is focused on? I only programmed it in English, so I'm going to select English. If it was programmed in other languages, I can select those. If needed, provide special instructions to the Amazon testing team, such as if there's a password, credentials, if you built in an automatic login or whatever, you can set that up. Not applicable. There's a requirement of export compliance. You basically have to turn this on, and this is talking about you're in full compliance of various laws and such. So, yep. If you're using maps, if your app is using like Google Maps, you are saying, yes, let that be switched over basically to Amazon apps, because this is Amazon App Store, not Google App Store. Our app doesn't have it, but I think you need to turn it on. Well, it's not marked as required. So I'll try to see with it off. Okay, so this screen needed your file, what language, and you needed the requirement. So I'll save.
Sorry, which file was it? Was it the Android release one?
Exactly.
You have renamed.
I've renamed mine, but yes, it needs to be. Here it is before I up here. Here it is before I renamed it. So the output from Visual Studio created these two debugs, not those, and they created release unaligned. You want Android release.
Where did you move it?
I just put it on the root level of my flash drive, just to find it easier. I copied it, actually. I guess moving it is the same thing, but I copied it over and left the original there, too. Let's see, next. Okay, so I got 2 out of 6. I'm going to jump over to the second one, availability and pricing. We first see a pretty simple screen. Where would you like your app to be available? In all countries where Amazon is available. Or in only selected countries. So if my app only I wanted to release in Ireland, I can turn that on, and then I find it on the list and such, and I allow that. Antarctica. I want all those penguins to be able to use my app. I want only the French southern territories of Antarctica to have access. So I'm going to say, yeah, everywhere that Amazon exists, you can get my app. I suppose even if it's in a language that's not English, it's not going to translate it for you. It doesn't do that far. You have to translate your own app, and there is actually a there is a plugin to help translate. Back on Cordova, there was a plugin. On the documentation, there was a plugin, globalization. Where is that at? I thought it was there some geolocation. I thought there was a plugin that would help to translate it. Would help to translate it. Obviously, machine translation is never perfect. So just assume that it's going to be in English because you programmed it in English. And then we have, is your app free or paid? You have to select one of those. And if I do the paid, then there's going to be, okay, what's your price? You know, it's going to cost $1. There is a maximum, I think. I don't think it lets you do a lot. Well, does anyone remember, like, 10 or 12 years ago, that famous Apple app called something like I Am Rich? It was an app. It was the first app ever sold for $999. And all that it did was a little red gem that would sparkle. And when you tap it, it would sparkle some more. That's all it did. But it would show that I am rich because I bought a $1,000 app on the App Store. And it did sell. A couple at least. So way back on the ancient history of the App Store 10 years ago, that was one of those first, like, that's an app? People paid for it? Yes and yes. So I'm not going to sell this at all. It's a kind of a school project, of course, and you can see it's pretty straightforward. I set it for $1 US, and it automatically says, okay, you know, 0.9 euros and 110 yen and $1.31 Canadian and such. So probably leave it on free. Would you like to when would you like to publish this? So it says leave it blank if you want it to be right away. As soon as you get all 6 screens and click save, it'll begin the process to make it public to the world. If you want to exercise your social media chops and say that this is about to release on the first day of the month and then spend 3 weeks doing Twitter campaigns and Facebook ads and so forth to the release of midnight of February 1st, you can do that too. So, all countries for free. That's all you need for the class one. If you want to change it to anything else, you can. Once I do that, I get another check mark. Let's jump to content rating. Relatively straightforward, but you have to, nowadays, you have to talk about what your app is, what the features are for the right audience to find it and or to exclude it and that sort of thing. So we have, here's subject matters. Does our app include none, moderate, or strong examples of each of these? Now, sometimes apps are in somewhat of a gray area because the app itself doesn't have it, but the app could give you access to things that you didn't expect. Let's see if I can see an example here. If I find in Google Play the web browser Firefox, see if I see it over here. On some of these things that you might think, okay, this one is set to everyone, but some things that you wouldn't think are set to T for teen or M or whatever, even though you think, why is that app like mature? Because the app itself exposes the user to things. It doesn't have these things inherently itself, but often, like when you have a web component, well, you can find anything on the internet, so these app stores have them set their listing that this is a T or mature type of app, which is weird. So for us, in our app itself, there's no violence in our app, although a person could be saving the most violent comic ever, but we have no control of that, of course. So there's that. Is there cartoon violence, real violence? No. Is there this? Is there that? To my knowledge, none of these are in there unless you changed your app. And then so all of these are going to be no. Is this academic? Is this application for educational purposes? It's not really focused on like a school environment. It's a thing that you might think, well, comics, okay, they're kids or juvenile or whatever, but it's not focused on academic. It's not like a research app. It's not a school type of app. So I'm putting no. Additional info, account creation or other personal info collected. What do we put here? Yes, people do create an account, and they create an account with their email address. So there is...
Oh, I thought you meant, was that only collecting that data
All it's saying is there account creation? We're not saying that we're collecting it. But then that ties into the last item over here. What's your privacy policy? If I select that yes, there is account creation, that suddenly becomes required. Now, I'm not saying put no, because it does have users create accounts. So I would put yes, but then it says, okay, what's the link to your privacy policy? I've got to go write a privacy policy and put it on my website. And this is where I would say app, mobile app, privacy policy template or generator or example. You're going to find a few results, about 444 million. You're going to find a few results for free and not for free of websites that are giving you for free or not resources for you to write a privacy policy for your app. Because technically here, if we say that our app does have account creation, which it does, it wants an answer over here. For school purposes, that's fine. For the purposes of this class, because it's not going to be released to the real world, make it up. But if it is a real app, your real app, after you learn this stuff and go off to the world and make your own app, these are the things that you will need to decide yourself. So if there is no app creation, you just turn it off and then there's no requirement. Are there ads in the app? No. Is it directed to kids under 13? Comics are for everyone, but I'm not focusing it on the youngsters because they're too poor to buy the comics, so it's over 13. No gambling. Location detection. We don't have any sort of like detect my location via GPS and such. Maybe in the future I would. Right now, no. Is there user-generated content or user-to-user communication? What's this one? There is user-generated content. It's kind of, I don't like that it's both in the same check mark because this one makes me focus here that users are talking to each other, which they don't. But they do create content. They do add their own comic and do a photo and barcode and so forth. So yes, there is user-generated content. And that's part of what I would put in the privacy policy. Our app is designed for you to create your own account, but we never store your information, etc., etc. And you're going to get that out of researching a privacy policy. So for class purposes, whatever makes sense for you here is correct. For a real-world app that you would be creating, you would, of course, set it up properly. And when I save...
I got the file in there. Is it going to make a difference if I put in an email, an address and a girl that doesn't exist?
I'm putting one that doesn't exist. Again, for the purposes of the class, because ultimately, once I get all of these filled in, there will be submit app. But you're not required to submit app for this class. If you're submitting a real app, you do need them all checked off, and somewhere in the agreement we signed off on with Amazon, it says you're going to fill this in legitimately. And at any point, remember, you can go back to these boxes, these screens, and click Edit, and go back to make any change. Let's look at description. So this is what will be visible when eventually people see your app in the App Store. And you can get an example of this over on a regular Amazon. Remember, we can search apps. And let's say if I look up meditation, let's see, what about a meditation app, just as an example. So just to see this, when I search meditation apps, there's all these meditation apps. And when I click on any random one, there's, the graphics for it, the name of the app. So this one's called Deep Meditation, Relaxation, and Sleep Meditation App. I don't think they needed to say app. It's already an app. They're in their developer name here, Deep Relaxation and Meditation, is the name of their app developer account. And there's a free download. It's got 4 stars, 54 reviews, whatever. And then there's these other things. When was it originally released? Here's teamdeeprelax.org on their website, so that information will be public. Be aware of that. Product features, product description, this huge essay right here, this is what it's asking for us right here. Short description, up to 1,200 characters. Long description, up to 4,000. These are both required. A list of bullet points of what your app does, 1 per line, up to 10. For the class, I would say don't just put gibberish, but put this is not going to go publicly unless you want it to, so you would put anything you want, and when I grade it, when we do the assessment, I'm going to look in on all of these screens. I'm going to check that all of these are checked green and that you've got relevant stuff, not just saying, you know, test. That's not going to get you the best grade. I do want you something. I want some creativity here. We focused a lot on like the coding of it, but I also want you to put some effort on this part of it. So let's say I'm going to fill this out at some point. The default description will be for the English version of the app. I can also add the Spanish translation, the Japanese translation, the Hindi translation, etc. I only need the English one. If you want to do more, you could. And let's say later on I will complete that. So this is not complete yet, so I'm not going to get the green check mark there yet. I have to think about it. Images and multimedia. This one will be a little bit more effort. I'm just going to sort of introduce it, and then you'll have to work on it. Images and multimedia. You saw on an app listing an icon or like one graphic that you would see from among everyone else. That's the icon it's asking for. And oh, look at that, 512 pixel size. When we designed our app in Photoshop, we started at that size. So if you had designed your app in Photoshop only targeting the 96 pixel one, and you upscale it, it would have lost a lot of quality. So we already started at a high end. And so here we need 2 sizes for your app icon. They need to be these sizes, ping format with transparency. So you'll need to practice a little more Photoshop for that. Screenshots. Between 3 and 10 at these dimensions. Now, screenshots, you can get them a couple of ways. When you, I want to go back to my debug version here. When you simulate it in your browser, you can get screenshots of your app off of your browser simulator. You'll probably have to tweak them a little bit in Photoshop. But what it's asking you for is show us a few screens of what your app is. Maybe this screen here. Maybe on my keyboard I can do print screen and it makes a copy of it, and I can use Photoshop or Word or Paint or whatever and make a real screenshot. I can use the Windows snip and sketch tool to capture a screenshot file. However, be mindful of these dimensions. Between 3 and 10, pings or JPEGs of these dimensions, vertically or horizontally. So you're going to need to make these sizes.
Separately, do they have to be some combination of those sizes?
Yes, you can make 3 of this size. That's fine. You don't have to make one of this, one of this, one of this. What it wants you is, again, let's look at an example of a real one. If I go look at this particular one, they have this and they have, look at this. I click on that one and there's one screenshot, There's another screenshot, and they're doing it a little bit more advanced, which is it's a device which you can go off on Google search and find an example of a device, and they paste it in their graphic, and then at the top they also put some text: meditations to ease worries. So that kind of screenshot, don't think about it literally as just a screenshot. Think about it also as a little advertising screen. You know, that's not inside the app, but I have a photo that I took of the child, and I put the critters there and everything in text, and that's not a screenshot, but that's a little bit of marketing material. Again, think about what you see in other apps. Let's look at this other app. This one's a little bit more straightforward about, like, yeah, here's the app here. This is what you're going to see in these apps.
Can you tell what size of images they're actually putting up there?
From here I cannot, just because the size of my monitor, it resizes it to the appropriate size. But this is why they give you this, like, you know, HD quality size here, so that it may look good on a nice monitor, or it'll shrink it down to the right size for a device.
Do you have any suggestions on what size you would use for that?
Even the smallest one here is going to give you good enough quality, you know, 480 wide by 800 tall or horizontal. So even the smallest one is going to be a good enough size and area for you to create something that will be eye-catching. Now, you can also do this. Remember, this class has been taught for like 5 years, and there have been previous generations of students that have done this class. Have you thought about going to other students? Examples, CBDB. These are previous students, some of them with other, you know, graphic design experience and some with not. Picking randomly here, this student over here, so this is what someone did on a previous semester. They have taken our other classes here, IMCP and so forth. This is an Illustrator graphic that they designed. And what did they do? There's their splash screen. They uploaded their splash screen as one of the screenshots. Then over here, they took these photos. They were running it on a device or a simulator and took a screenshot and showing it off there. So you can get inspiration from previous classmates here. So they've got their app icon. Again, just showing off their work. This one's looking a little bit blurry, so it might have been the original size was, their original graphic on their app might have been a little blurry and so forth. But what else? So we need 3 screenshots, 10 maximum. Promotional image is optional. Notice it doesn't have the little red. It's optional. But the promotional image is a wide horizontal image. It can only be landscape, and you see the example in this student over here where they've got their promotional image. There it is. It's just showing off another graphic, another banner for their app. Video is optional. No students have ever done this one. Maybe if you'll do it, you'll get extra credit. But this is some short video about showing off your app, how it works. And those are the requirements right there. It's a lot of work, but you could do that. And Fire TV assets. My app is not targeting Fire TV devices, so I don't have to worry about it. But these 2 screens here, you know, these 4, those are easy. Description takes a little bit of thought. Images, that'll be some work. I do want all of them to be green. Eventually, when they're all green, you'll be able to submit, which you don't have to. As long as I see them all green, you're good. But if you really want to publish it, if you're proud of it to show the world, like a lot of other students were, you could. So, 34 results. Question?
What about like copyrighted images that people use?
That is the issue about for the school purposes, it's fine because it's a school project. But technically, for publishing to the real world, let's see, do we have any examples over here? This particular one doesn't seem to use any copyrighted image. I'm sure plenty of them are using copyrighted images. For the purposes of the class, there's no big deal to me, but for like a real world example,
Right, but someone uploaded those, right? I think those you can actually download. So
yes.
potentially get in trouble.
Yes. It could be just removed from the App Store. It could be you get a lawyer's letter. You never quite know. Like, I think, yeah, this one right here. So I don't know where that photo came from. I don't know if they shot it themselves. I don't know if it comes from the official Marvel website. I don't know. For the class purposes, you don't have to publish it. But for publishing to the real world, maybe you go in and you do find royalty-free photos or public domain photos or draw your own or take your own photos. So there is that to consider. I have that comic. I wish I had that one, actually. First appearance of Wolverine. But anyway, that's what I want to talk about at this moment. This is one of the assessments that we're going to, one of the parts of the assessment. The other part is that the app works, and we still have a little bit more to talk about it. But this is the big idea up to this point. We'll have a little lab time if you want to explore this stuff. There's a lot new to take in here because we're segueing after we've MVP'd the app. Well, we have an app that we could publish to at least one app store. We'll discuss the other app stores as well a little bit, but this is where we'll end at this point. General questions on the Amazon App Store, this process. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a little work. Any questions?
Is it a homework we need to do, or we will conclude here?
We're going to conclude here, and you will need to be able to do this by the last day of class, which is the 21st.
Should we do it home or will have time here?
The class ends at 9:30.
Well, this,
Or there is a
It just-
Thursday for
There is what?
So you will not give us in a class to finish it?
I will usually give some amount of lab time. Today we're going until 9:10, which we went the lecture until 9:10, which we'll have until 9:30. So I will try to usually give some amount of time to work on this, but just today we ran a little long. I don't think we'll run this long on this Thursday after we do the next pieces that I want, and then we'll have that last day for in class, and then you have the weekend, and then it's going to be due by the Tuesday. Different question over here. Okay, so let's wrap up at this point. We'll do some lab time if you want to work on this, and this is what you'll need to, one of the things that will need to be functional by the last day of class.